Taiwan has just over 500,000 indigenous residents. They make up about 2% of the island's population. They've traditionally supported the pro-Beijing Kuomintang, but because many feel they are marginalised, the voter turnout is traditionally low.
Some activists are hoping to turn that around, as Lynette Lim reports.
Tuhi Matukol is a community activist from the Pinu-Umayan tribe in Taitung in eastern Taiwan. The 35-year-old leads a movement aimed at getting indigenous youth to be more politically involved and to return home to exercise their voting rights.
A lot of people, we don't consider voting as important because we think no matter how we are asking for more or for the politician to do more is useless. A lot of people, they think politics is useless for us to advance or to achieve better life of our own. So we rather work harder for ourselves instead of relying on politicians. So we have this distrust to the politics or politicians. So yeah, I think that's why a lot of young people, they don't really go back to vote.
In 2016, voter turnout amongst those aged 20 to 30 was 74%. But amongst indigenous youths in the same age group, it was just 35%. Tuhi wants to change that by helping people see the link between politics, that is legislation and policies, and the daily problems they face. And she's aware that for some indigenous youths, the most basic form of political participation, voting, is a luxury they can't afford.
But for a lot of communities, it will take them at least 1 or 2 hours or 2 or 3 kinds of transportation for them just to go from their community to the closest, the nearest train station. So it's not only the money cost, but also time cost. And also for a lot of indigenous people or youth, they are working on labor work. If they get 1 day off, then that means they are lacking of 1 day income. And of course, if they live further in the mountain or further in the community, that means they will need to take at least 2 days off. 2 days off, that means maybe 2 weeks of money for food, for meals. So the cost is high.
Singer Panai Kusui is part of a group sponsoring bus rides for indigenous youth to return home to vote. Though the indigenous population has been a reliable vote bank for the Kuomintang, the ruling Democratic Progressive Party has been advocating indigenous culture since they took power. And some believe the DPP has made headway since the last election, especially among younger indigenous voters. Will Taiwan's indigenous youth be able to sway their communities, especially the elders? Some observers believe it will be an uphill challenge. Brian Hugh, an editor at independent bilingual magazine New Bloom, says that while indigenous youths are more open to supporting other parties, the older generation tend to be firm KMT supporters.
Young people, they're more on the same page as their Han Taiwanese peers, politically, economically, who they support. But the question then, as I think is also true of Taiwan more broadly, is can they persuade their parents to vote differently, or their grandparents if they're still alive? And that might be a bigger challenge because it's hard to change them once they're very rooted in their political ways.
Of the 6 reserved seats for indigenous people in Taiwan's legislature, 5 are currently occupied by KMT or Pan-Blue legislators. And among them, 2 have held their seats for 5 consecutive terms. Lynette Lim, CNA, Taipei.